Creepy Carrots by Aaron Ronalds and pictures by Peter Brown. Jasper Rabbit had a passion for carrots, and the carrots that grew in Krakenhopper Field were the best. Fat, crisp, and free for the taking. He pulled some for a morning snack on the way to school. He yanked out a few on his way to Little League practice. He ripped them from the ground on his way home at night. Jasper couldn't get enough carrots until they started following him. He first noticed something strange after the big game against the East Valley Hares. Jasper was about to help himself to a victory snack when he heard it. The soft, sinister tunk, tunk, tunk of carrots creeping. He turned, but there was nothing there. Just my imagination, he thought, but he hoped a little faster. That night, as he was brushing his teeth, there they were. Jasper whipped around, but nothing. He laughed at himself and picked his toothbrush off the floor and went to bed quickly. The next morning, he approached Krakenhopper Field slowly. He reached for 2 wild carrots. Nothing happened. He bit into one. Nothing happened. Phew! Creepy carrots! It was ridiculous. But when he arrived home that evening, Mom! Jasper screamed. Creepy carrots! In the shed! His mom opened the door slowly. There weren't any carrots, not even the regular kind. There are no such things as creepy carrots, Mom said, shaking her head. Later that night, as Jasper laid in bed, he heard it breathing. Terrible catty breathing, and there on his wall. Creepy carrots! He shouted. Dad! His dad tumbled into his bedroom and threw on the light. They searched under the bed. No creepy carrots. They looked through the closet. No creepy carrots. They opened the dresser drawers. No creepy carrots. Just a bad dream, son, his dad said, shaking his head. Now go to sleep. That wasn't going to happen. By the end of the week, Jasper was seeing creepy carrots creeping everywhere. Jasper knew his parents were wrong. Creepy carrots were real, and they were coming for him. But they couldn't get him if they couldn't get out. Jasper hatched a plan. First thing on Saturday, he grabbed supplies and headed to Krakenhopper Field. As the sun finally set across Krakenhopper Field, Jasper Rabbit smiled. On his way home, there was no tunk, tunk, tunk. There was no carrot-shaped shadows. His plan had worked. No creepy carrots would ever get out of that carrot patch again. And as the sun finally set, the carrots of Krakenhopper Field cheered. Their creepy plan had worked. They were sure of it. Jasper Rabbit would never get into the carrot patch ever again. Creepy Pair of Underwear by Aaron Reynolds and Peter Brown. Jasper Rabbit needed new underwear. On Thursday, Mom took him to the underwear store and grabbed the last 3 packages of plain white. But as they headed for the checkout, Jasper spotted them. Creepy underwear! So creepy, so comfy. They were glorious. Mom, can we get these? Jasper pleaded. I think they are a little too creepy, said Mom. They're not creepy, they are cool, said Jasper. I'm not a little bunny anymore. I'm a big rabbit now. Mom agreed to buy 1 pair. That night, Jasper wore his cool new underwear to bed. Do you want me to leave the hallway light on? Asked Dad. Dad, I'm not a little bunny anymore, said Jasper. I'm a big rabbit now. His dad shut the door, and that's when Jasper noticed. The underwear glowed, a glowish greenish glow. He closed his eyes. He pulled up the covers. He buried his face in his pillow, but it didn't help. He could still see that bluish greenish glow. Jasper leaped out of bed and put on a pair of plain white. He stuffed the creepy underwear into the bottom of his laundry hamper. He finally fell asleep. But when he got up the next day, he was wearing the creepy underwear. Ah! Jasper threw them into the garbage can. He was still a big rabbit. He wasn't scared or anything. But he was done with scary underwear. After school, Jasper was doing his homework when he heard it, a scratchy, scraping sound coming from his dresser. He opened the drawer and they were back, staring at him with that bluish greenish glow. He snatched the creepy underwear out of the drawer. He grabbed a big envelope and some stamps. Bye-bye, scary underwear, he said, dropping the package in the mailbox. When he opened the front door the next morning, there they were. And were those chopsticks? His creepy pair of underwears had somehow returned from China, and it had brought back souvenirs. Jasper grabbed his mom's good sewing scissors. She didn't like him using it, but this was an underwear emergency. This time, the creepy underwear were gone for good. At bedtime, he slowly opened his underwear drawer. Nothing, just plain white undies. He searched under his bed. He shook out his lampshades. Whew! There were no sign of creepy underwear. He went into the bathroom to comb his ears. They were back. Ah! What's the matter with you? His mom asked. You're so jittery lately. Nothing. A grown rabbit couldn't be terrified of his underpants. He seized the underwear. He snagged a shovel from the garage and he rode. He didn't stop pedaling until he reached Creek and Hill. Jasper began to dig. He dug until his hole was dark and deep and 100% underwear proof. He dropped the underwear in. They gleamed from the bottom. that bluish greenish glow. But not for long. Woohoo! When he got home, Jasper crept up to his dresser. They couldn't be in there. There was no way, right? He reached for the handle. He peeked in. Nothing. Just plain white. Jasper smiled and turned out the light. There was just one problem. It was really dark in there, even for a big rabbit. Jasper turned on the light. He looked at his non-glowy pair of plain white, and he knew what he had to do. The creepy underwear were a little muddy, but they still filled the room with that gentle greenish glow. Next day, Jasper gathered his allowance money and went to the underwear store, all by himself, just like a big rabbit. That night, Jasper wasn't scared at all. As he lay down to sleep, he smiled. And so did his underwear, because they just finally found somebody who wasn't scared of creepy underwear.
I Need My Monster, written by Amanda Noel, illustrated by Howard McWilliam. Tonight, when I looked under my bed for my monster, I found this note instead. Gone fishing, back in a week. Gabe. What was I going to do? I needed a monster under my bed. How was I supposed to get to sleep if my monster was gone? I tried to sleep, but it wasn't the same without Gabe. I missed his ragged breathing, his nose whistling, the scrabbling of his uncut claws. How would I ever get to sleep without Gabe's familiar scary noises and his spooky green ooze? It was no use. Gabe would be gone for a week and I just had to have a monster. I climbed quietly out of bed so my parents wouldn't hear me. Grown-ups have some strange ideas about monsters under beds. I knocked on the floorboards, then scrambled back under my covers. I waited nervously. Would a new monster appear? What would he be like? Would his snorting be as cheerful as Gabe's? When I heard some creaking under my bed, I knew that substitute monster had arrived.
Good evening. My name is Horbit, and I will be your monster for the evening.
Harbet? What kind of name is that for a monster? You don't sound scary at all. Have you ever scared a kid before?
Well, no, but I have read all the best books on the topic.
Do you have a long teeth and scratchy claws?
No, but I have an overbite, and I am a mouth breather. Listen.
Herbert's panting was kind of scary, but it wasn't enough for me. Listen, Herbert, I'm sorry. I just don't think this is going to work. It's nothing personal, but I really need a monster with claws.
Picky. As you wish, I'll go.
There was some more creaking. Then Herbert was gone. Some scratching warned me that a second monster had appeared.
Good evening. My name is Rolf. I understand you need a monster with claws. If you would please lean over, I will hold out an arm for inspection.
I crouched on the edge of the bed, hoping to see a horrible shaggy arm with sharp ragged nails. Instead, I was surprised to see sleekly brushed fur with smooth, shiny claws. Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but is that nail polish on your claws?
Yes, it is. I believe professional monsters should always be well groomed.
I could tell that this was not going to work either. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Ralph, but I need a monster with scary claws. Like Gabe's, I thought. I heard some more scratching, and I knew Ralph was gone. A minute later, a third voice from under the bed rasped,
Check out these claws, kid.
I gathered my courage and peered over the edge. The claws were impressive, jagged and dark and razor sharp. So far, so good. I was a little nervous. Could you stick out your tail? I whispered.
Sure, but don't get scared.
I peeked through my fingers at the slimy tail slithering over the foot of my bed. That's when I noticed the bow. Are you a girl monster?
Of course I am. I'm Cynthia. Do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. I definitely need a boy monster. Boy monsters are for boys, and girl monsters are for girls. Everybody knows that.
Well, aren't you a picky one?
Then she was gone. Was I being too picky? Nope. I knew my monster needed to be well clawed and menacing. The whole point of having a monster, after all, was to keep me in bed, imagining all the scary stuff that could happen if I got out. Then I heard a shuffling noise and some slobbering. A fourth monster was under my bed.
Hey, the name's Mac.
One look at his claws proved that Mac was a big, scruffy boy monster. I shivered. Maybe this one would work out. Those are excellent claws, but do you have a long tail? I leaned over to see.
No, my tail is stumpy. Max slurped. But I do have an unusually long tongue.
Why would I be afraid of a long tongue?
Oh, I don't know. You might never know when I might lick you.
I fell back on the bed laughing.
Well, if you're not even going to try to work with me,
I held my giggles.
I really don't think you should send me away. Kids who reject 5 monsters in one night.
I did not reject 5 monsters tonight, I interrupted. My regular monster went fishing.
Fishing, huh? Maybe he just left because you're so picky. Fine, I'm out of here. But I wouldn't expect another monster tonight if I were you.
How was I ever going to get sleep without my monster? I was surprised to hear more creaking under the bed. Loud creaking. With scratching. I thought no more monsters are going to appear tonight.
Sorry, I'm late, kid.
It was Gabe.
I thought I would enjoy fishing, but I didn't. Those fish scare too easily. No challenge at all. You, however, are challenging, my friend. You're almost too old to be afraid of monsters. You keep me on my toes. Ha! Toes, a delicious snack.
The bed quivered as Gabe's stomach rumbled with hunger.
Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to start the evening with an ominous puddle of drool.
I peeked over the edge of the bed. Green ooze spread soundlessly from underneath. Then the bed trembled as Gabe unfurled his spiked tail. He was daring me to guess where he might pop up. I shivered.
So, you had some substitute monsters tonight?
Sharpening his claws on my bedpost.
Were you scared?
Then Gabe started tapping. I could tell he wanted to know if I still needed him. No other monster can scare me like you. I giggled, diving under my cover and pulling them up tight. Through the blanket, I heard Gabe's soft, comforting snort.
Ah, I knew it. We are made for each other.
When my blanket started to slip off the bed, I knew Gabe was ready to eat.
Now, if you could please stick out your foot. I would like to nibble your pinky.
I yanked my blanket back up and scrunched my feet in so Gabe couldn't get them. No toast tonight, but you can have this, I offered, pushing a pillow off the bed. I didn't even hear it hit the floor. Gabe was back. The wooze was perfect. Everything was back to normal. I shivered again. I'll be asleep in no time. Little Frog and the Scary Autumn Thing. Story by Jane Yolen, illustrated by Ellen Sheep. Frogs love green. Green water, green lily pads, green leaves. Green. But autumn had come to the pond, turning everything red and gold. To Little Frog, red and gold were scary. They were the colors of hot sun and cold blood. She sat on a green lily pad and contemplated the trees. Half of them were now yellow, two of them were orange, one was bright red. All the rest were still green, sort of. She had never seen such a thing before. Well, she was only a little frog, and it was her first fall. Little Frog shuddered. Mama Frog jumped up next to her, which made the lily pad sway. Little Frog usually loved such swaying, but she was still shuddering. So the lily pad shuddered too. Be brave, little frog, said Mama Frog. Most things that are scary are only just new. You need to see what they are all about. Listen to their voices. Once you know them, they aren't scary anymore. That was certainly puzzling. Little Frog herself was pretty new, and she wasn't scary, but she always listened to Mama Frog. So that day in early October, Little Frog decided to try to be brave and see what red and gold were all about, and orange. She hopped back into the water, dark green water, and began to swim. Her heart was going bumpity bump as she did the backstroke and the side stroke and some frog paddling too. But she made it to the shore. Brave little frog! She stuck one toe onto the brown dirt. After green, Little Frog loved brown the best. Brown is soft and comfortable and familiar. She took one step and another and another, though now her heart was going bumpity bump, thumpity thump. Brave, brave little frog! Then Little Frog hopped a bit down the twisty path, going towards the wood that was so full of red and gold and orange. She wasn't sure about orange. Brave, brave, brave little frog. Suddenly, a wind whooshed through the trees. Leaves began to rain down. Red leaves, yellow leaves, orange leaves, scary leaves in scary colors, making a scratchy, scratchy noise. Little Frog hopped this way, ran that way, spun about, fell down, ran again. She wasn't being very brave now. By the time she stopped hopping, running, spinning, and falling down, Little Frog was lost. Horribly, miserably, totally lost. Besides, her right leg hurt. There was a little scrape on her knee and a spot of red blood. She shuddered again. Suddenly, she wasn't so sure about red. It was dark in the woods, except for those patches of red and gold, and orange, and purple as well. She was absolutely not sure about purple. Strange sounds came from everywhere. Scary sounds. Little Frog didn't feel very brave anymore. All she felt was scared. But then Little Frog listened more closely, just as Mama Frog had told her to. That was the voice of the wind through leaves. That was the voice of a squirrel up a tree. That was the voice Papa Frog used in the spring. All friendly sounds she knew. But everything was strange indeed because it wasn't spring, it was autumn, and autumn was scary. Boom. Frightened all over again, Little Frog looked for the sound. And there, sitting on the top of a huge pile of red and gold and orange and yes, even purple leaves, was Papa Frog himself, singing his spring song, even though it was a scary autumn day. Come up, sang Papa Frog. Think of the leaves as a lily pad. Well, they didn't look like a lily pad. They weren't the color of a lily pad. But Little Frog tried to imagine them that way. She climbed up the pile, thinking green, 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 all the way to the top. Even though the red and gold and orange and purple leaves were scratchy, scratchy underfoot. Then she sat down by Papa Frog, right on top of the leaves, as if that pile was really a lily pad. There! Boom, Papa Frog! That wasn't so bad, now was it? For a while, Little Frog thought how bad it was. Then she thought how the leaves were actually crispy, how they were gold like a rising sun, orange like the sky at dawn, and red like the sky at sunset. She still wasn't sure about purple. She thought about how autumn leaves made a tickly sound in the wind. They weren't scary at all, only new. Papa Frog was right. Mama Frog was right. Not so bad, she said to Papa Frog. Not the red and orange and gold, he said. She noticed he didn't mention purple. Then Little Frog and Papa Frog slid down the pile together with red and gold and orange and even purple leaves sliding down all around them. It was so much fun. Little Frog climbed up and slid down again and again. Red and gold and orange are not scary at all, said Little Frog. Not when you really get to know them. Papa Frog looked at the pile again. And purple's not scary either, he said. Only new. At last, arm in arm, Little Frog and Papa Frog happily hopped and danced all the way home to the pond where Mama Frog had made a fresh shoe fly pie for dinner, something all three of them knew well. It was still hot, just the way they liked it best, and even better, inside it was all green.
The Princess and the Pea, a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen and retold by Debbie Croft. Once upon a time, there was a prince. He wanted to marry a princess, but she had to be a real princess. The prince went from one country to the another, looking for a real princess to marry. He tried very hard. He looked everywhere, but he couldn't find one. The prince was sad. He came home again, but he still wanted to marry a real princess. There are lots of princesses, he said to his parents, the king and queen, but I don't know if they are real princesses. Every time I meet one, there is always something about her that is not as it should be. You should marry a real princess, said the queen sharply. The king smiled at the prince and said, I think that a real princess would want to marry a prince like you. That night there was a wild storm. Lightning flashed across the sky and thunder rattled the windows at the palace. Rain was falling heavily. Suddenly, the bell at the palace gate rang loudly. The king rushed out to unlock the gate. To his surprise, he saw a princess standing there. She was shivering in the cold. There was water running off her coat and dripping down into her shoes. Please, may I come inside? The princess asked the king. It's very cold out here. I am wet from the storm. Yes, the king said. Quickly, coming out of the rain. I wonder if this girl is a real princess. The king said to himself. Maybe the queen will know. The king took the princess into the palace and sat her down by the fire where she would be warm. He looked at the queen, but she didn't say anything. She just smiled. The queen knew how to tell if this girl was a real princess. The queen tiptoed upstairs to her bedroom. She put a tiny pea on the bottom of the bed where the princess was going to sleep that night. Then she lifted 20 thick mattresses and put them carefully on top of the pea. Next, she placed 20 of her best quills on top of the mattresses. Later that night, the princess, who was very tired, went off to bed. Good night, the princess said to the king and the queen, and thank you so much for letting me stay in your lovely palace. The next morning at breakfast, the queen asked the princess how she had slept. Not very well, said the princess sadly. I felt as if I was laying on something very hard, and now my body is black and blue. The queen was very happy to hear this news. No one but a real princess would feel the pea I placed under all those mattresses. she said with a smile. All of a sudden, the rain stopped and the wind blew the storm clouds away. The next year, the prince married the princess, and they lived happily ever after in the palace.